You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast, episode 541, The Disease.
Welcome into another episode of Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Holly Amos, sitting in for Norman Lau. Each week on Mission Log, we get intimately involved with an episode of Star Trek, taking a very personal look at the morals, meanings, and messages, and asking ourselves if it stands the test of time.
This week, The Disease, the one where Harry gets a girlfriend and everyone else has something to say about it. I'm not tipping my hand too much there, am I?
Poor Harry.
We're already... We haven't even gotten to the contact information, and I feel like we're already editorializing about the episode. Anyway, welcome back, Holly. Glad to have you here as a guest co-host.
Thank you. It's nice to be back.
I think you're the first returning guest co-host.
Yeah, me.
Yeah. And we have some very interesting people lined up. It's been part of the fun here for me is to surprise our audience with people. They don't know who's coming from week to week, but surprise audience, you got Holly for another week. So very glad to have you
myself.
Here. Yeah. So hooray back to you. So if you don't mind telling people where to reach us, and then I will share some trivia.
Okay, Mission Log is a conversation about Star Trek, obviously. Find the show at missionlog@roddenberry.com and on X and Facebook at missionlogpod. While you're at it, a review and a rating at Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform makes a big difference to the podcasts you love. Always remember, your comments could be used on Mission Log. The Roddenberry Industrial Complex will not be denied. And now, here's John with this week's trivia.
All right, trivia for The Disease. We have a story by Kenneth Biller, and often when we talk about a story credit going to one person and the teleplay going to someone else, it's interesting to pick apart who did what. Well, Ken was really driven originally by the romantic story about Harry, and everything else that you get in this episode came much later.
Well, the concept of the disease arose out of a fascination Kenneth Biller had with people staying in unhealthy relationships.
Aha. I wonder if that's a bit autobiographical or I don't know, Ken, so I don't know if that's the case. But, writers write what they know, right? So... yeah.
I don't know.
Could have just been a fascination of his. Well, as I mentioned, the teleplay was done by somebody else, and that is credited to Michael Taylor. And, that's where we hand things off from Ken's original idea to everything that Michael brought to the story. Now, we recently discussed Michael's work since he was credited alongside Brian Fuller on Bride of Chaotica. And don't forget that Michael made the jump over to Voyager from DS9, where he contributed 4 stories there, including The Visitor and In the Pale Moonlight, a couple of real heavy-hitter episodes. Now, The Disease is directed by David Livingston, and I just, for our purposes, practically no introduction is needed for David. We love him, and he still holds the record for the most Trek directed by anyone, and the most recent of his episodes that we discussed here was Nothing Human. And Holly, you have some additional trivia for us about the set pieces, right?
Ah, yes. The Varro set was also seen in Dark Frontier as a Borg set, but The Disease was produced first.
Aha, interesting. So I think back to Dark Frontier, and of course you have a lot of leftover set pieces from Star Trek First Contact that just kind of held on to and that they kept using on Voyager. But I guess, that central control room / area where we see the Queen.
The Borg Queen's lair.
Yeah, you had a pretty sizable and multi-level set. That makes sense. You take this, throw some Borg stuff on it, put in the green lights, you're good to go, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's meet our guest stars, and it's time to meet the Varro. Well, there is a stowaway discovered on Voyager who is played by Christopher Liam Moore. We've seen Christopher before, although you would be forgiven if you didn't recognize the face, from one of my favorite episodes from Voyager's third season, Distant Origin. And Christopher in that played the scientist Tova Vir. And then there's the Varro captain, Japek, played by Charles Rocket. And if you were a Saturday Night Live junkie like me, then you may remember Charles from the 1980 season. He only appeared in 12 episodes, and he was fired by the network after an expletive that he let fly in the closing credits in one episode. Yeah, live TV in 1980 on the network. That was going to be a career killer. But actually, Charles's career rebounded, and he worked very often in everything from TV to feature films to extensive voice acting work. And he was a recurring character on Touched by an Angel and Normal, Ohio and other shows. And he was in Dances with Wolves and then all the way to the other end of the spectrum in Dumb and Dumber. So he did a lot of work. Now, we lost Charles in 2005 under painfully tragic circumstances, which just out of sensitivity, we will leave out of our notes for this episode of the podcast. And finally, Harry Kim's love interest, Tal, is played by Musetta Vander, and she got her start in her home of South Africa as a host for music videos on TV, and she made her way to the U.S. and started appearing in music videos, and then easily made the transition to TV and film. Genre fans will have spotted her in a number of familiar titles like, the Highlander TV series and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Babylon 5, Xena, so many more, and she was even in the Wild Wild West movie, and this, so far, is her only Star Trek appearance.
Normally a disease is named after the first patient to be diagnosed. Fortunately for Harry, someone named Dee caught it first.
Prologue. Somewhere on a really huge ship, Harry Kim and an alien woman make their way into private quarters, intimately embracing each other. They are definitely more than casual acquaintances. As things get steamier, the woman's skin starts to glow. Harry seems a little uneasy, but still giving into temptation. As they find themselves on the bed, his skin starts glowing too. Act 1. Voyager is helping to repair this giant alien ship's warp drive. The inhabitants, the Varro, are not exactly welcoming to outsiders, so it's a big deal that Captain Janeway convinces their leader, Japek, to let her see the warp assembly. They bond over the shared struggles of the Delta Quadrant. Meanwhile, Harry is still with his new Varro lady friend, Darren Tal, and he's just breaking pretty much all the Starfleet regulations and direct orders from the captain by even being there. But love, or, this, is in the air, and Harry and Tal have been glowing together ever since. Literally. Back in the Varro control room, the crew is monitoring a warp transfer, but things start going haywire. Harry rushes in, claiming that he was checking something in Section 22. Totally a work thing, that work thing that I was doing in Section 22. Tal shows up too, and suddenly the Varro ship is destabilizing. They abort the transfer, and it looks like they'll need to spend days fixing microfractures in the ship's hull. Back on Voyager that night, Tom and Harry chat, and Tom absolutely is not buying it. He knows what's up. In his quarters, Harry sneaks a call to Tal, but Tuvok detects it from the bridge. Tom, being the good buddy he is, covers for his pal, but warns him that this fling might not be the best idea. Harry doesn't listen. Assigned to a job in astrometrics, Harry asks Seven about her take on the human experience of love, which she shrugs off as a kind of disease. Speaking of, Harry starts to show some really odd symptoms, like glowing again, literally, and Seven insists that he goes to sickbay. Act 2. In sickbay, the doctor wants to know in detail what Harry has been up to on the Varro ship, but he plays dumb. When it looks like quarantine might be in his future, Harry comes clean about his romantic escapade. The doctor has to report him to Janeway, who is not happy in the least. She turns on lecture mode and reminds him that love, or something like it is not an excuse to break Starfleet regulations. Elsewhere in Voyager, Neelix and Tuvok discover a Varro stowaway. It turns out there's a dissident movement among the Varro to leave their generational ship and go elsewhere, do anything else, just not do what they've been doing for 400 years. He's interrogated later by Chakotay, who threatens him with time in the brig if he doesn't tell him in detail what's going on. There's another of the Varro who is unsatisfied with being in a generational ship her whole life. That would be Tal. Harry is back in her quarters because, of course, and she points out to him that she and others like her would rather stay and explore a nearby star system rather than running from every other species they encounter. Also, yes, that glowing thing is what they do. The Varro have a complicated love bonding aspect to their physiology, really difficult if it's broken, and now Harry's got it too. Act 3. Over a meal, Janeway and Chakotay discuss Harry and his love affair with Tal. Janeway insists on keeping the reprimand in Kim's file, even over Chakotay's objection that she probably wouldn't treat other crew members the way she is Harry. Meanwhile, B'Elanna Torres discovers that Voyager has the same microfractures as the Varro ship caused by synthetic parasites, probably made by a Varro dissident. Chapek is furious when he learns about the bond between Kim and Tal, fearing it could make Tal sick, possibly even kill her. Meanwhile, Kim, at this point, just can't stop himself. He steals a shuttle under the pretense of work and then beams over Tal to spend more time with her. Tuvok is on the case, though. He contacts Harry, ordering him to return to Voyager now, and he needs to bring Tal with him, because she is wanted under suspicion of sabotage. Act 4. In Voyager's conference room, and essentially cornered by the truth, Tal admits to releasing the parasites, but only to break up the segments of the ship and help free the Varro who want to leave. She and the others like her don't want to hurt anyone. Janeway steps in and gets Tal to agree to slow the progress of the parasites. But now she turns her attention to Harry once the Varro leave the room. What he has with Tal is seriously a biological condition, and the doctor can treat him for it if he'd follow orders and go to sickbay. Harry absolutely refuses treatment to break his bond with Tal, insisting that his feelings are real, not just a chemical reaction. He confronts Janeway about her own feelings toward Mark and asks if she would want to be treated to ease her own pain. This heated argument is conveniently interrupted when Voyager violently shudders as the Varro ship starts breaking apart. Harry comes up with a risky plan to use Voyager's structural integrity field to buy the Varro more time. Act 5. The Varro ship is falling apart and Voyager's in danger too, but Harry's plan works and they manage to hold things together long enough for the Varro to evacuate. Some segments stay together as before, but others fly off to choose their own path. After a touching goodbye, Tal's ship goes its own way, and Harry is left heartbroken. Still, he's determined to let his feelings run their course without medical intervention. Visiting Harry in sickbay, Janeway reflects on how much he has grown. Even if he's no longer the perfect officer she once thought him to be, he has grown into the better man. 7 of 9 also has a heart-to-heart with Harry, acknowledging that maybe love isn't such a weakness after all. The end. So I got to say, one of the things right up front that I liked the enormity of this generation ship, because I thought about the Cygnus from the black hole. I thought about the Discovery from 2001, not USS Discovery from Star Trek Discovery, but the Discovery from 2001. I love seeing a different scale of ships. Like, I feel like in Star Trek, very often we got kind of the same general idea of a size of a ship. This was just cool and new, and we got that big flyby, and I loved all that. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I like the idea of there being, instead of it being, like a floating city, which is kind of what our ships are in. It's like their entire it's the entirety of their species, basically.
Yeah, like multiple city-sized or, multiple giant ships strung together. And we even get that little shot of Voyager, like, hanging on to it later, which is kind of cool, just to give it scale and dimension. I thought that was great.
Do you ever wonder, I don't know why I wondered this.
Please.
So Voyager is docked. How do we know that the docks are going to be compatible?
Right.
Like the technology of the docking. Like, how do we know? I mean, people ask the same question about like them speaking languages and being able to understand each other.
Yeah.
But I think about docking and like, what?
Interesting. That's a good question. I mean, I guess there's probably a contingency for some universal-ish type dock, but who knows? Like, just even the material differences could cause a problem. Yeah, good point. Love that moment of Harry glowing. I kind of like the metaphor that they're glowing, but no, they're also glowing.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's sexy stuff. It was, right?
What do you wish we did that?
Glowed?
Yeah. Would that be a dead giveaway that you got lucky last night?
Oh man, you know what? Wow, that opens up a whole different set of questions, because it's like a telepathic giveaway. It's like, if you already know what people are doing, then you don't have secrets about that kind of thing. Boy, that would be a lot to give away, though. Especially
it would be a giveaway if you were cheating on somebody too.
Right?
We didn't.
What do you mean? This glowing? My bioluminescence? No, not at all. That's something else. Yeah. That's
All right. Well, listen. Harry Kim is my favorite character.
Yeah.
He has been since I was a kid, which is a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Considering that the comment that I put down is I'd probably sleep with him too.
Is it because he's like, is he particularly handsome? Is it just the boyish charm? Is it all of the above?
All of the above, and he's a little bit awkward.
Okay, yeah, do you like that?
Yeah. I think all of my favorite characters are a little bit awkward.
Well, you know what? Look, I like that they leaned into this. I like that they got to make Harry a bit sexy here. And I like that they leaned into the sexiness with her, too. Like, Star Trek does not always do well with this kind of thing. And I'm sure that we all have criticisms here. But just to have a moment with a couple of adult characters and kind of rolling around in the sheets, good. I feel like finally we get something that's a bit relatable here, Also, really like Charles Rocket's just like combination of superiority and xenophobia. Like, he's wonderful, and he towers over Kate. My God.
Right, but they have a really great conversation that shows Janeway's ability in negotiation. Because the reason why I think that Janeway is a really good negotiator is because she always appeals to some sort of personal connection, which you could interpret it as manipulative. But what she says is not untrue.
Not untrue, but she's also thinking steps ahead, because that's what a good captain does. She's playing 3D chess and beyond, and I like that. Yeah, she's buttering him up just enough and finding common ground, and she's being the diplomat. I want to go back to the bedroom here for a second. Sometimes you got to keep your alien characters a little more human looking, I think, to drive home the idea of their bond, their relationship. But one of the
compatibility.
Compatibility. One of the things they give this species, though, presumably they all have it, this pattern, this design on her back, which I thought was so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome. Way better than the other kind of sexy stuff we've gotten on Voyager up until now.
I mean, but the sexy time top, sometimes it gets uncomfortable in Star Trek, and I think that's just because of the network censorship.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a show, at least then, designed to appeal to families and be shown at all times of the day, so you gotta scale it back a little bit.
Yeah, they have to keep it PG. It feels sometimes it feels like teenagers texting each other.
Right. And I think they have to ramp up Harry's awkwardness there as well a little bit.
Maybe that's why they picked Harry.
I absolutely, absolutely. But let's talk about Tom. Let's talk about his reaction to what Harry has done here. I'm so just, I want to shake Tom sometimes because, look, he does this weird bro-y, like living vicariously through him and just not being cool and supportive as a friend, and then calling out Harry for like, oh, you go after impossible women, and it's just. I'm not happy with Tom here.
Tom is. Don't you think that Tom might be sort of seeing a little bit of himself in Harry, and
of course,
maybe projecting?
Of course, and that's what makes it even weirder. Like, Tom, come on, you have this relatively fresh relationship with B'Elanna. Just get your nose out of this. Get your nose out of Tuvok's situation when he was stranded on the desert planet. Stay out of it. You know, the more you talk, you're making this less cool.
But I feel like he doesn't really. He's probably asking the same question that you and I both asked: is like, what does Harry honestly think that he is going to get away with?
Sure.
Like, having a relationship with somebody who's on the same ship is different.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But look, it has never stopped Tom or many other people in the past on Star Trek, and I'm sure that we will have more things to say about that in a moment. I really like that Tal's room on the Generation ship is so ordinary. Like, it looks like a hotel room today. You got the flat screen TV, you got the glass top console. I mean, it just kind of looked like a place you'd live, and that drives home the idea of the Generation ship. But now apparently they have these amazing environmental control systems, which just wowed Tom because he comes back and he tries to sell Tuvok on this. And I'm like, guys, you already have a holodeck. You don't, like, why are you trying to sell this so hard? You don't, you know. But I do love that Tuvok gets the kind of banter that I love Tuvok having, where I think Tom says something like, you're just not getting it. He goes, apparently not. That was nice stuff. And I guess, like, I got to hand it to Tom for shutting off the communication. But my God, everybody freaks out about the unauthorized communication on the bridge.
Well, I mean, they're working with a species that's xenophobic and perhaps is. I get it.
Yeah.
They're not sure whether or not this species can be trusted yet. I mean, I'm sure that they would like to trust them because, you know, we being, you know, Starfleet is not necessarily xenophobic. So
that's true. That's true. You don't know what's going on. It might be cause for concern. Yeah. Also,
they're being cautious.
They are. Yeah. Also cause for concern anytime Harry asks Seven about advice in love. I don't know
why he asked Seven anything.
Oh, that was weird. That was, yeah. I mean, like, I know you got to book in these scenes, but come on. Yeah.
It could, I mean, who do you think would have been worse to ask, though? Like, Seven or, like, Tuvok?
Tuvok. Well,
Tuvok has a mate, though, so.
Yeah, he would have given an appropriately logical answer. You know, I think there's pretty much nobody worse to ask than Seven, especially given Harry's history there. Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, poor Harry, leave it to him to get what? I mean, early perception is, does he have, like, a space STD? Oh, no.
It's a space STD, exactly. Yeah.
Poor Harry.
Yeah. So have we ever encountered before that sex requires medical clearance in Starfleet? I don't think this has ever come up before.
Which is probably why they were like, hey, let's touch on this subject. Should it?
I mean, I guess, but it seems like there should also just kind of be blanket understood protocols. I don't know. It is weird when an episode just focuses on one particular thing and then you have to heighten all of it in a single episode because you've never touched on it before, you know?
Right.
So,
Yeah, I'm trying to think of if anybody else asked for medical clearance or if it's just off-screen stuff that we don't see and it's inferred.
It's got to be. This has to be inferred clearance. Yeah.
But I mean, to be fair, like, we have issues even as a species on our own planet with passing around STIs and STDs. Like, it makes sense. Like, you bring an alien species and, like...
Of course, yeah. But I mean, look, at that point, they're going down to alien planets, and they're eating the food, they're drinking the water, they're breathing the air. They're there's all sorts of opportunity for contamination anyway. Just look, when he beams up, biofilter, done. Can we just call it that? Maybe everybody would be okay. I've mentioned many times before about how I'm scared of Janeway in her angry mom mode. Definitely. This is one of those times, too, when she dresses down Harry. I felt that the way that Harry felt that. Oh, and I hate to go back to a point that I made a moment ago, but we're talking about Tal's room on the Generation ship. Okay, this flat screen TV. We have not seen a flat screen TV on Star Trek up until now. We get the big monitors, which are obviously just either a flat photostat or they'll do a blue screen effect there. But everything else, it had these giant CRT monitors built into the set, right?
Yeah.
I had to look it up. Flat screen TV was new technology in 1999. In fact, the very first one Fujitsu introduced in 1997, it was 42 inches wide, 3 inches thick. Pretty sure that's the one that she had in her room, but dressed up to make it look sci-fi-ish. It cost $15,000 in 1997. So as of our recording, the adjusted for inflation, that would have been about double that price. So about $29,000 as of our recording today.
Maybe I can find. I don't think we have any of the budgets for these shows.
No,
I don't think we have any of the budgets for the later shows. I can go look it up.
Guarantee you they rented it. There's no way they bought it because they would have been like, well, this is such an amazing piece of technology. We dare not keep it in storage or whatever.
Don't touch
it.
Screen.
Just let the Okudas build a little design around it to make it look spacey. That'll be it. That's all you get to do. Closed set. Nobody else allowed near it. You know. Did you notice Musetta Vander's accent, though, in the episode? Yeah. Mm-hmm. She's Dutch South African, and I thought it was cool just to hear like a little bit of that informing the alien voice, you know? Because Charles Rocket is doing Charles Rocket, but she has an accent, which is very nice. Let's see, we have a stowaway who brought plenty of breadsticks onto Voyager.
Rations.
Sure, they look like breadsticks.
Rations.
He went to the all-you-can-eat breadsticks place on the Varro ship, and he was like, I'm going to take a lot more of those. Don't ask why. I'm just taking these with me. See ya. I did want to know a little bit more about the Varro dissidents. Like, I don't feel like we really got enough.
We only met 2 of them, and everybody kept saying it was just that, a rumor. And I'm like, can I?
And they represent thousands, supposedly.
So, like, why aren't we seeing, are they talking about it openly or no? Like, is it a
I'm
secret?
going to say no, but I'm going to say we don't see them because of budgetary restrictions. All that budget went to that flat screen TV. So you can't hire more extras.
We can't have extras for protests.
No.
Because we have a flat screen TV.
We have to have that TV. We got to show that off.
Well, it had to be nice quarters because they had sexy time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if very many people know this, but fortnight is something that it's 2 weeks, right?
Yes, it is.
So when Harry and Tal are talking about like their time together, they're like, it's a great 2 weeks, and that's a fortnight. And the Taylor Swift song popped into my head.
That's totally fair. We just re-cue that for like a new home video release of Voyager. Yeah. I like Chakotay calling out Janeway here about her maybe over-the-top reaction about Harry.
Are you saying that Chakotay is useful in this episode?
Okay, look, I'm not going to go that far, but I'm going to say that Chakotay is actually doing his job here, which is to question the captain's orders and maybe just put her back in line a little bit. We don't get enough of that. I wish we got more of her from other characters, too, like Tuvok, her oldest friend and trusted advisor. But no, we give this kind of stuff to Chakotay. Not saying he's useful, but he's at least doing what I expect.
maybe she just needs to get laid.
Maybe.
She hasn't. We know she hasn't, really.
Are you saying that there are resolutions which have gone unresolved? Going back to what, season 2? Yeah. I still love Jorek's uptightness about the whole situation. By the way, Harry, this is just the dumbest plan. There's no way that he thinks he could get away with taking the shuttle away. Oh, I'm working, guys, and then beaming her up. It's just...
What did they think? Oh, so what was he supposed to be doing? Repairing something on the ship? And
yeah.
He's like, oh, I finished early, and then you went out to... They're not going to be able to see that you're all the way out there. Like, what are you doing?
I know.
What did he realistically think was going to happen?
And look, we can chalk it up and say, well, he was just in love. But no, come on.
They transporter
seriously.
Logs.
Yeah.
He's not where he's supposed to be.
And somebody on Voyager is watching that shuttle. Like, hey, that shuttle was supposed to be at the Varro ship. Oh, look, it's just going clear off course to a nebula.
And he was far enough away that it wasn't Voyager hailing him. It was the Delta Flyer that went out there and was like,
went out here to look
would
for
you get your butt back?
Yeah, exactly. Janeway uses a phrase that I've never heard her use yet. Stow it, ensign. I think we're going to have more to say about the Janeway-Harry Kim relationship here. Glad to see Harry show a bit of backbone, though, at some point. I thought it was a
he stood up for himself.
Earned moment of him to do that. I thought as we got toward the end, again, leaning into the cool CG, like we have this new toy to play with this giant ship. I thought they made good use of the effects here. That was all very satisfying to see on screen. I thought we also got a nice, genuine goodbye scene between Tal and Harry. I thought that played very well. But then you get back to Voyager, and I'm just like, come on, even the EMH, even the doctor asking Janeway to order Harry to take his medication. Come on, like, even the doctor could use this as a learnable moment, a teaching moment. Like, just let humans have human emotions. You tried it with your holodeck family.
Right.
You had to have emotion there virtually. So...
He's curious about emotion enough to the point where he's like investing himself in experiencing that. And then he's ordering other people to just take medication to get rid of it. Listen, I have always felt like it's important to deal with feelings of loss, whether it be a breakup or a friendship breakup or a death, whatever.
Yeah.
Because I feel like constantly distracting yourself
Right.
or like altogether avoiding your feelings can be super damaging.
Yeah.
And having, I don't know, I've been through a few fairly bad breakups. I've also had a former partner pass away. Mm-hmm. So, like, Harry's distracting himself, but healthily.
Yeah, I agree.
Because he's, like, distracting himself with work.
Mm-hmm.
But I also was, I was sort of asking myself, would I have taken, like, a pill or gotten a shot if I could just not have to deal with it? And I don't think I would have either. No,
Harry's right here. We'll explore that a little further, but yeah, I think Harry's right. And I'm glad that we at least got a quasi-apology out of Janeway, or at least she's acknowledging that she would have reacted differently if it was Tom. By the way, Tom sex post facto Paris. Go back to that episode. But yeah, I'm sorry, Janeway, you should not be thinking about Kim differently than you do from the rest of your crew. It was 5 years ago that Harry came on board, as he points out. So, yeah, I love Janeway so much, but I do not love a lot of her interactions here. And then poor Harry Kim, he's going through all this, like, no, I'm just going to tough it out. I'm sitting there alone in the mess hall. In walks his other crush. What timing. In walks 7 of 9. But yes, you and I question his asking her about love, but then we give the moment to 7, at least dispensing a little wisdom here. A little, now, love is not a disease. Now, go tell that to Janeway.
Yeah.
Right?
Janeway shouldn't have questioned it as much as she did, given the fact that she was engaged and obviously in love with her partner.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's shocking to me that 7 seems to have it more figured out than Janeway does.
Maybe 7 should have created a cure, but then we'd be hearing about Love Potion 7 of 9 forever.
All right, I think in the last segment we kind of teased some deeper talking points, as we often do in the conversational flow of Mission Log. I think we got to talk about sex on Star Trek a little bit. And look, we're just talking about one slice of one episode and one series. People like Jesse Gender, who have made a whole career out of, picking apart and analyzing how Star Trek deals with sex. Obviously, go check out her videos because they're amazing. But I think there's some stuff here that we can focus in on because something about this played very strangely to me. I feel like sex on Star Trek up until now has been treated as a very cavalier thing. They even use that word in the episode. And I don't want to say that it is a cavalier topic or should be treated in a cavalier way, but it has rarely ever been made a big deal of. And here, I joked in the recap that it's like everybody has an opinion here.
Yeah.
Everybody has some knowledge of what Harry Kim is going through. And I just found it strange and uneasy to experience that he's in the middle of this thing where so many other characters in the history of Star Trek have had a little dalliance here or there with somebody who is not of their same species. Kirk, yes. Like multiple times. Even Tom Paris, right? Like I mentioned, ex post facto.
Yeah, ex post facto, yep.
And look, and I understand that canonically you can make little arguments, say, like, well, they didn't actually do this thing here, they didn't actually do this thing there. But if we're getting down to what the concern is here, that there is some, biological contamination. Okay, look, just by being in the same room, maybe, just by shaking hands or in the things we have seen on screen, a kiss, whatever, that would still be the case.
You can get a biological contamination from another human.
Of course.
If you're a human.
Of course. Yeah. So I feel like maybe this is a situation where if it were a real life thing and if they've been there for a couple of weeks, that maybe the doctor would have at least been part of the initial first contact party and just say, hey, can I do a couple of medical scans?
Just in case somebody sleeps with them or just in general?
Just for any sort of biological cross-contamination. Seems like the kind of thing. I mean, look, you have the perfect situation. You have a holographic doctor. So he can literally he cannot contaminate anybody. He could just go over there with a tricorder because they are very xenophobic, remember. He could have just gone over there with a tricorder and say, hey, I'm representing this ship and you've been in contact over the view screen and we're going to help you out. But I understand your concerns. So let me just do a scan here, a medical scan, and we'll make sure that we're all okay to interact with each other.
But then you wouldn't have an episode.
Well, then you wouldn't have an episode, of course. But now we've got an episode. And
everybody's up in Harry's business.
Yeah.
And knows what he did last night.
Yeah. And we're lumping this on Harry Kim, who is the guy that we've already kind of carved out as being the problematic one when it comes to these sorts of relationships. I mean, look, he has gone all the way from the guy who is captured to, help repopulate this weird planet of women who don't have any men around and they want his DNA and they're just going to leave his, husk of a corpse on a bed somewhere, all the way up to his initial just horrible, I can't even call it flirtation with 7 of 9. I just call it a bad choice by the writers with 7 of 9.
I feel like having it be Harry, who has, in essence, fallen in love with this person, it would have been different if they would have. It would have hit differently if they would have used Tom. Because
absolutely, yeah.
Tom is, the kind that would gallivant and just have fun. I guess, sexual liberties, whatever. I don't think that Harry is like that. Yeah. So it's bizarre to me that he was come down because it's not in his makeup to act that way.
Right.
Like if he's having a relationship with somebody and he says like I actually have feelings for this person, it's bizarre to me that he's still dismissed.
Yeah.
And that it's not talked about in a more mature way, I guess.
Well, that's why Janeway's reaction is so terrible, is because if she thinks so highly of Harry Kim, then acknowledge the sincerity of what he's going through. Acknowledge the sincerity of his emotions here.
And it's not like a dumb teenager being like, after like a day. Like there's a physiological thing that's happening that is recordable and can be witnessed.
Yeah.
So, like, we know that a connection has been made based on how this species interacts with each other. I mean, Tal even said, like, she didn't know it was going to work with a human, but now that it's been explained and we understand what's going on, like, he's being sincere.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's not the type to, hit it and quit it.
Yeah. In a word. Yeah. I want the attitude of the show to give Harry back a bit more self-possession, a bit more dignity here, because he steps out of line once, and it's like, I understand it's the character Janeway, but it is also the show, because it's every line that's written for every other character in reaction to him that I think is just really, like, uncalled for here. Like, let Harry grow. Let him,
I think he's acting out of character from the standpoint of he is not the type to break protocols, really, and he's like the perfect officer, but he's not acting out of character in terms of like the way that he conducts himself in romantic relationships.
Yeah.
Like, that's not something that he had a live-in girlfriend when he was on Earth.
He did. Yeah. Libby who? Yeah. Things change. It's been 5 years in the Delta Quadrant, but it kind of goes back to the way that Geordi LaForge was treated in Next Generation.
Yes.
Which is, he's the guy that we're just never going to allow to have a functional adult relationship.
Remember that
What?
date that he had?
Yeah.
Remember that date that he had in the holodeck on the beach?
Yeah.
It was so bad. It was so
Exactly.
uncomfortable. Why did they do that to Geordi?
Well, exactly. And why are we doing this to Harry Kim, where we're just constantly going to undermine his ability to have something that is functional, adult, and reasonable, that nobody else needs to have an opinion of, and that can just live out its natural lifespan here. They both acknowledged at some point in the episode, hey, we knew that this was going to end. We knew that we were going to have to go away at some point. That is a very adult thing to say,
Why, though? Why she eventually breaks off from the group? Why didn't she go with them?
Oh,
Why didn't he go with her?
You know what? I would not have minded that. If we were rewriting season 5 of Voyager and we said either going to introduce a new character and have Darren Tall, cool, I'm fine with that. And we give Harry a bit of a personal life. Or if you want to be really bold and you're going to write a character off the show, that would be one way to do it.
I would have been sad if they wrote Harry Kim off
No,
the show.
and look, I
would have preferred they add a character so that she goes with him. But it's one thing for them to have a conversation like this can only last 2 weeks, but that was when she was still thinking she was going to be on the generational ship. Well, and then things changed, and they let her go. She can do whatever she wants, and she still is like, bye.
Look, her goal is to just get to a place. And here you've got a ship going to a place called Earth.
Yeah, we have a goal too.
Yeah. She might say, oh, that sounds really good, actually. So I'll go there with you. Yeah, so I'm disappointed in the way that Harry has been treated up until now. I'm especially disappointed with the way that he is treated in this particular episode. But I want to change topics for just a second here, because I want to talk about this whole idea of a generational ship. We don't get that a lot in Star Trek. And we get something like that with Voyager, because at the beginning of Voyager, the premise was we had 70 plus years to get home. Now we're like 20 or maybe under 20 with all the jumps that they've done. But I love the idea of generational ships anyway, because that's just like a super ambitious sci-fi idea. And you can understand the idea coming to a writer who writes sci-fi, because we have this kind of human tradition of, okay, we're going to go to the farthest place, and our ancestors got on ships and they crossed these oceans they didn't know much about, and it's a dangerous journey. They're going to get to a place they don't know much about, and they're probably not coming back. They're probably, if they don't die getting there, once they get there, it's not like they can just hop back whenever they want. So I get the idea of how that could inspire a science fiction idea that, look, there are places that are so far away that initially the people who take the journey aren't going to make it. And then maybe their progeny and the ones after them and the ones after them, they're not going to make it either. But someday they'll make it. And I think that what's so interesting to me about that is that the initial group, it takes a lot of common buy-in to get there. Like, they all have to decide, we all want to do this. But what they can't do is make sure that their kids and then their kids and then their kids buy into the same dream. And that's what I think is so fascinating, that we don't get enough of out of what's failing on this generational ship. I think that's fascinating stuff.
Right, because they're just locked into something that they didn't make a decision about. It's interesting to me that many people would agree to reach a goal that they know that they will not see.
Well, so think about it this way.
Like the first people on the ship.
Yeah, but I mean, think about it this way. Okay, Earth's population, 7-something billion people. Could you find 100,000 people who would all agree? Like, you know what? If the technology exists, we're going to take a one-way trip because we're aiming toward whatever, we've discovered an Earth-like planet, but it'll take a couple of 100 years to get there. Could you find 100,000 people who would agree to that? I think so. What you wouldn't find is 100,000 people in the next generation who would all agree to that, I think.
Correct.
And keep it going in some sort of normal functional semblance, like
how many of the people that left do you think went back to their home planet?
Ooh, that's well, maybe none. Maybe if this generational ship got too far away, or they agreed, like, you know what, just by democratic vote, we're not going to let one of these segments fly off. So maybe that first generation, and presumably they're all gone. They don't live 400 years. So maybe none of them went back. But now, who knows how many generations we've gone. But it makes me think of, particularly in the 19th century, you had these earthbound utopias, experiments in utopian living. And you get enough people together like, we want to live like this. And we all have a similar set of values, and we have a similar set of beliefs, and we eschew these parts of modern society. We're going to carve our own path. They usually don't last more than a generation.
Right.
They usually all fail because they stop having the same level of buy-in.
And I mean, maybe that's why, there is also a concept that we've seen in sci-fi. Instead of it being a generational ship, it's a sleeper ship.
Yeah.
Because you have no guarantee that the next generation is going to buy into whatever plan you guys have. So we put everybody to sleep for 400 years.
I think a lot of more people wouldn't mind that. They would think like, at least if I know that I'm going to get to a destination, however far away it may be. Maybe I have loved ones who come with me, so I have that familiarity, and you can kind of structure a society around that. That might be a much more palatable thing. I guess I kept wondering, well, what is the point of the generational ship if not to get someplace? And maybe that's part of what I wanted more about how they've developed over this 400 years and why they're so xenophobic and what problems have they encountered.
Where are they actually going?
Yeah, because the whole point of the generational ship, I think, is not just to keep flying, it's to go to a place. Go create a colony somewhere. Go live your lives. But eventually you got to stop. Your ship's going to fall apart.
I know. That's the other thing. Is I was like, this ship has been out there for 400 years, and they just keep adding random nonsense to it.
Yeah.
Just coming across shipyards and
Right. They gotta stop and get food somewhere. Come on.
Back in Kirk's day, risk was our business. Move over. Harry is here. Being frisky is his business.
All right, we have survived the disease. We have been inoculated. We've taken the antidote to the disease. We've discussed it. We've made it to the end. And now, as we do on every episode of Mission Log, we ask ourselves a couple of questions. We ask if the episode holds up, and we ask what the message or moral or meaning might be. So, Holly, with this purposely vaguely posed question to you, does the episode hold up? What do you think? Does the disease hold up?
I mean, I think the concepts hold up, but I don't think the reactions are holding up. I don't think in this day and age that you would have that kind of reaction, or, I mean, in a mature society, you wouldn't, right? Like the gossipy, everybody knowing Harry's business and like talking about it at the water cooler. I don't think in a mature society that would continue to happen like that. But the concept of being careful in terms of like who you're sleeping with, especially when you're bringing alien races into it.
Sure.
I think that is, if we ever do get out there and explore the other planets and other species and meet other species, I think that's still going to probably be something that has to get discussed.
Oh, sure.
Because again, we have issues among our own species.
Yeah.
So I think that part of it and that like question of how careful we need to be will hold up. I don't think the reactions have held up.
Yeah. I agree with that for sure. I think the production value on this episode is quite good. Love the effects. Really like
a flat screen.
I had a flat screen, a $15,000 flat screen. They had some nice set pieces. It looked good. It felt like a high-end episode of Voyager without throwing a whole lot in your face other than the cool CG. And I thought, like you, there are a lot of good ideas here, but the ideas to me just never quite gelled. Our focus is really meant to be Harry and Tal's love affair, but I'm definitely not satisfied with the way that was handled. I think Janeway's reaction is really over the top, and the gossipy, as you described, reactions of other people just felt really out of place, really inappropriate. And I feel like as this episode tried to do something that was sexy, which is fine, let these characters have some mature moments, that's great. I think the attitude of the show about sex and the maturity of it was just bungled. So it's really too bad that they couldn't find a happy, mature adult medium to strike here. And then all the stuff with the Varro just never comes together. I love the idea of a generational ship, and again, handled really well with special effects. But then there's this whole political situation going on there that just isn't presented in any way that makes me care about it. Right. I cared because I was interested in knowing more, and I just never got more at all. They just tell you instead of show you without any detail or out any sort of emotional connection to it. Love the guest stars. I think they're all great. I wish that this episode was better, and I really especially wish it was better to Harry Kim, because I cannot stand the way the show has just constantly used him as a punching bag and constantly let him be the butt of the joke when it comes to his growth, his identity, his self-possession, his sexuality, his maturity. Yeah. That just really makes me angry.
I feel like they view him, especially Janeway, still as like a kid.
Yeah.
When he's like an adult. He's like an adult. Like an adult. He is an adult.
He is an adult, yeah. Yeah. Even if we say that he was fresh out of the academy, and you maybe backtrack a little from Garrett's age, and because I think Garrett was 25 when he got the role, somewhere around there. Even if you say that Harry Kim was 22, he's 27 now. You know?
Yeah.
Just come on. He's pushing 30. Just let him be an adult here. So I wish this was better, because I think Star Trek can and should explore emotional depths in its characters. And, you know, especially the ones who aren't the big stars and who don't always get the focus. So if you're going to give these characters focus, don't constantly do the same thing and undermine them. So that, man, I didn't think I was going to come down so hard on this episode because I like the ideas. I like the guest stars. I like the production value. I like that Star Trek was doing a relationship drama, but then they just undermined every opportunity to really get it right and really do something meaningful. So that's, you know what I think
would have helped?
What's that?
What I think would have helped was if we had a character who was like Deanna Troi on board, like a counselor.
There we go.
I think that would have helped the storyline.
Yeah.
By way of Kim having somebody to talk to who is or should be indifferent in that position.
Okay, so look, bold choice here. It's definitely not Janeway. It's definitely not Tom. You know. It's not Chakotay because he's useless. It's not Seven. Okay. No. It's not Neelix just because that kind of weirds me out. Yeah. I'm going to go back to the Doctor. I'm going to say it could have and should have been the Doctor, because the Doctor has had multiple opportunities to run that psychologist kind of counselor subroutine.
Right.
And really learn from it, you know?
But instead, they have his character pushing to medicate him so that he will just forget.
Terrible.
Which is not the way that the human species functions.
No. And I think that brings us into our morals, meanings, messages. Did you pick up a message here?
I mean, grief is awful and it sucks. Yeah, listen, for Harry, I think it's an important message that you should deal with your grief after a loss, any loss. It should be dealt with in a healthy way. You shouldn't try to self-medicate with actual medication, which doesn't exist, or with, stand-in medication like alcohol or drugs like that. A lot of people self-medicate themselves with things like that after a loss. And again, it can be any loss. It can be a romantic loss, a friendship loss, a family loss, a death in any state. It's important that the message for me be that you need to deal with your losses and deal with your grief versus medicating it away or ignoring it or distracting yourself so much that you don't actually acknowledge it and work on it and work through it.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a similar thing. I mean, even in my notes, I said, sunshine of the spotless mind. You can't just do that to get your way out of it. Heartbreak is tough, and you shouldn't medicate. If we're putting that in finger quotes, because like you said, there's not the medicine to
that doesn't exist, and it shouldn't exist.
No, but as a sci-fi metaphor here to say, if we're going to explore this idea of love as a disease, but it is also a power, a source of strength, a source of power, we don't want to medicate that out of existence. We don't want to, attenuate those feelings.
Because feelings are ultimately part of the human experience.
Exactly. And Harry says, I've got a disease, but I'm willing to live with the symptoms. Yeah, I mean, now, in the sci-fi metaphor, it is literally a disease, and Harry could take medicine for it, but in human reality, in earthbound 21st century reality, he's having this really profound emotional moment, and he and everyone else around him should understand the value in that. To quote another character, he needs his pain. So I think that is part of his growth, part of his development, and he should just have the support of people around him, not the weird, gossipy manipulation of how they want him to behave. I think that's one of the very odd choices here.
Or I feel like maybe that everybody was going to sort of be questioning why he's so upset about this person that he was only involved with for 2 weeks.
Yeah, right.
I could see that happening based on the way that everybody reacted to it.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not something that plays out on screen, but that's the vibe that I get from the characters based on that.
Yeah.
So, 2 weeks is substantial enough. And again, he had a physiological thing happen to him.
Right.
It wasn't just that he fell in love. Like, they had a physiological connection.
Right. And even if you say that that's a psychological thing that happens the way this species interacts with humans, like, it's the psychological experience of love, it just got accelerated. And it had this really profound, genuine effect on him. Also, I'm going to say, playing a little bit of both sides here. Look, Harry, don't break the rules, okay? You know better. But also, show a little compassion when someone breaks the rules. I'm talking to you, Janeway. You should learn. You should know better than that.
And that's one of the things that I think that Voyager is very, very good at, is presenting us with a scenario in which you can see both sides of the argument and have a hard time deciding where you would stand. Because I understand why I think their reaction was over the top, but I understand why they were concerned based on the circumstances. But I also understand Harry wasn't just screwing around. Like, he was actually had feelings for this person.
Yeah. Agreed.
So I think that, in the last episode that you and I did together, it was the same sort of situation where I was like, I can see both sides of this argument. I also see both sides of the argument for Toothpicks, and I still don't know where I stand.
well, I agree with you. Star Trek in general is good at that. I think Star Trek Voyager in particular is very good at that. Mission Log is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. If you'd like to support us directly, you can do so at patreon.com/missionlog for early access to shows and the Mission Log Discord. Our website is missionlogpodcast.com. And for more Star Trek news and discussion, visit trekmovie.com.
On the next Mission Log, Course Oblivion.
Some of the music for Mission Log provided by Warp 11. Online at warp11.com. Special thanks to consulting producers Matt Esposito, Homer Frizzell, Rand Hurl, Tom Kozak, Julie Miller, Mike Richards, Mike Shadable, Paul Shadwell, and David Takechi. Before anyone kisses any of these people, a TV announcer should pop up to read off all the possible side effects. That'll kill the mood. End transmission.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.